Dramatic testimony today, both on the stand and on tape, in the trial of a teenager charged in a crash that killed 4 other teens. Fox 41's Bill Alexander reveals some of the graphic testimony in the Herbert Lee murder trial that's difficult both to hear and to watch.
Opening statements got underway this afternoon. They didn't take very long. Prosecutors are letting pictures tell their story. Prosecutors wasted little time making their point to a Jefferson County jury. They say Herbert Lee is a murderer, and he killed Aaron Shields, Jamar, Damar, and Mark Claybrooks, his teenage passengers.
If he had just stopped the car, they would still be healthy, happy teenagers. They'd be a few months into the new school year at Pleasure Ridge Park High School.
This is video from a Louisville Metro Police Department dash cam while police were chasing Herbert Lee that night in December 2008. He was in a stolen Honda, according to police. Prosecutors say speeds reached nearly 80 miles an hour. The car is out of sight for a few seconds. Moments later, a crash into a tree. 3 teens die at the scene, and the other dies at the hospital. Officer Aaron Tonelli was in pursuit. He knew the car was stolen. The officer became very emotional describing the accident scene.
We saw the first young boy on the ground. He had his hand in the air, and he was calling for his mom.
The teens had just left a community youth gathering sponsored by Youth Alive, an organization that's now shut down. Testimony will indicate a Youth Alive worker instructed them to ride with Herbert Lee because the van normally used was too full. Prosecutors say the teens had no idea they were in a stolen car.
And after you hear all the evidence, you will know that he may have been reckless. But Herbert Eugene Lee III is not guilty of murder.
Prosecutors have dropped the reckless driving charge against Herbert Lee. They will not tell us why until after the trial. Sometime during the trial, the members of the jury will take a field trip. They will take a look at that wreckage firsthand. I'm Bill Alexander, Fox 41 News.
Good evening, I'm Dolan G.
And I'm Scott Reynolds. That verdict coming in after about 6 hours of deliberations over whether the 18-year-old was guilty of murder in the car chase deaths of 14 boys.
In instruction number 2, manslaughter in the second degree, we the jury find the defendant Herbert E. Lee III guilty. Under instruction number 5, manslaughter in the second degree with regard to Mark Claybrooks, we the jury find the defendant Herbert Lee guilty. Under verdict form 8, manslaughter in the second degree with regard to Jamar Claybrooks, we the jury find the defendant Herbert E. Lee guilty. With regard to manslaughter in the second degree for Damar Claybrooks, we the jury find the defendant Herbert E. Lee guilty under instruction 15.
But not guilty on the murder charges. Wave 3's Maricela Burgos has been at that courthouse all night and brings us this breaking news now from outside the courtroom. Maricela?
Well, Scott, all the parties involved in this case left the courtroom quietly. No one wanted to comment on the verdict tonight. Andrew Shields, whose twin brother Aaron was killed in that December 18th, 2008 crash, covered his face and appeared to be crying as he left the courtroom. Herbert Lee's defense attorney told reporters she wanted to wait to comment after sentencing tomorrow. She, too, was visibly emotional as she left. It took the jury more than 6 hours to reach a verdict. They did not believe Lee murdered brothers Jamar, Damar, and Mark Claybrooks or their friend Aaron Shields. Instead, they found him guilty of manslaughter to the second degree. Now, that crash happened back in December 2008 after a Youth Alive event. Testimony included a Youth Alive coordinator who told Lee to take the 4 young men home that night. Police say during that ride, Lee sped off when they tried to pull him over in a stolen car. Lee crashed into a tree, killing his 4 passengers. When Lee was charged with murder, the then 16-year-old boy was moved to adult court. His attorney wants that changed.
Since he has been convicted by this jury of manslaughter in the second degree, a Class C felony, he would not have been eligible for waiver to the circuit court.
Now, that would mean sentencing would be under juvenile guidelines. The judge did not rule on that request. Instead, he will consider that tomorrow morning. Now, the sentencing is scheduled for 10 in the morning. Reporting live, Maricela Burgos, Wave 3 News.
may not have to face any more jail time after being convicted of manslaughter. WHAS 11's Adam Walzer is joining us now live with more details. This all just happening now in court, Adam.
That's right, Renee. This time yesterday, Herbert Lee was facing 4 possible life sentences. Today, it looks like within about a month and a half, he could be walking free because a judge ruled just minutes ago that he will be sentenced as a juvenile. Now, this is how it all happened. In the state of Kentucky, you can only be indicted as an adult on certain offenses. Those are Class A felonies, including rape, kidnapping, and murder. He was originally indicted on that murder charge, but the jury yesterday, after 6 hours of deliberation, ended up convicting him of a lesser offense. That was second-degree manslaughter. That carries with it a penalty of 5 to 10 years in state prison. But today, or rather yesterday, after his conviction on 4 counts of that charge, his attorneys told the judge that they would be asking for him to be sentenced as a juvenile. You may recall that Herbert Lee was 16 years old when these offenses occurred on December 18th of 2008. He was driving a stolen vehicle with 4 men aboard, 4 young teenagers aboard, when he crashed while fleeing from police and killed all 4 of those boys. The jury decided that he was not guilty of murder yesterday, but they also said he was not guilty of reckless homicide, going with an in-between type of conviction in which he would, under an adult sentence, be subjected to a significant amount of time in prison. But he will return to court on December 3rd to be sentenced under juvenile rules. That could mean that he would be freed since he turned 18 since the offense occurred, and that could mean that they'll give him credit for that time served. We'll have more as this develops later on at 12:30. Reporting live from the Jefferson County Judicial Center, Adam Walzer, WHAS 11 News.